The sky was on fire with streaks of light, and I was drunk on cheap whiskey and heartbreak. I stood alone in the Wyoming field, the vast emptiness of the plains stretching out like my own hollow chest, when a meteor shower lit up the night. I made a wish stupid, desperate, and raw. I want someone to love me, no matter what. That's when the ground shook. The air crackled, and he appeared. Zephyr, he called himself, with eyes like molten amber and a smirk that could unravel a man's soul. He wasn't humano, not by a long shot, but he looked at me like I was the only thing in the universe that mattered. I'm Elliot Harper, a 28-year-old mechanic from Laramie, Wyoming, with grease-stained hands and a heart bruised from years of rejection. Growing up gay in a small town wasn't exactly a fairy tale. My high school sweetheart, Caleb, left me at the altar well. Not an altar, but the county clerk's office where we'd planned to sign the papers. He said he couldn't handle the whispers, the stares, the way his dad looked at him like he'd failed. So, he bailed, and I spent the next 3 years patching up cars and my pride, swearing off love, until that night under the stars, when I made a wish I didn't expect to come true. Zephyr wasn't just some guy. His skin shimmered faintly, like it was dusted with starlight, and his voice carried a cadence that felt ancient, like he'd seen centuries pass. You called for love, he said, stepping closer, his boots silent on the grass. I heard you across the cosmos, Elliot Harper, and I'm here to answer. I laughed, thinking it was the whiskey talking. You're what? An alien? A genie? I didn't rub a lamp. Buddy. A demon, he corrected, his smile sharp but warm. Not the pitchfork kind. I grant desires, but only the ones that burn deep. Yours did. I should have run. Any sane person would have. But his eyes held me piercing, knowing, like he saw every crack in my soul and wanted to mend them. He followed me home that night, to my cramped apartment above the auto shop. And by morning, he was washing my dishes, shirtless, humming a tune that didn't exist in any human songbook. Stop staring, husband, he teased, flicking soap suds at me. Husband. I choked on my coffee. I didn't sign up for that. Didn't you? He turned, drying his hands on a dish towel, his gaze softening. You wished for love, Elliot. I'm bound to you now, until you unmake that wish. Bound. The word hung heavy. I didn't know what it meant, but the way he said it like a vow made my heart stutter. Over the next few days, Zephyr became a fixture in my life. He'd perch on my workbench while I fixed carburetors, asking questions about spark plugs like they were ancient relics. He'd cook dinner bizarre, glowing dishes that tasted like nostalgia and spice and call me husband every chance he got. It was maddening. It was intoxicating. But something was off. The townsfolk started whispering. Old Mrs. Delaney swore she saw Zephyr's shadow stretch too long in the moonlight, with horns curling from its edges. My best friend, Maya, a bartender with a sixth sense for trouble, cornered me at the shop. Elliot, that guy's not normal. His eyes, they glow. Man, you sure you know what you're dealing with? I didn't. But every time Zephyr smiled, or brushed his hand against mine, or laughed at my terrible jokes, I cared a little less about the answers. He wasn't just some cosmic mistake. He saw me very scar. Every fear and he stayed. One night, we sat on the roof of my apartment, sharing a beer under the stars. Why me? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. You're whatever you are. You could have anyone. Anywhere. Zephyr leaned closer, his breath warm against my cheek. Because your wish wasn't just for love, Elliot. It was for you to be loved. Wholly. Fiercely. And I've wandered 1,000 worlds. But I've never heard a heart call like yours. My throat tightened. I wanted to believe him. God. I did. But the weight of his words soft-bound gnawed at me. What did it mean to be tied to a demon? What had I unleashed with that drunken wish? The next morning, I woke to find Zephyr gone. A note lay on the counter. Written in his elegant scrawl, "I'll be back. Husband. There's something I must do." Panic clawed at me. Had I driven him away? Or was something darker at play? I didn't know it then. But that note was the start of a storm. Laramie wasn't just a sleepy town anymore. Shadows moved in the corners of my vision, and whispers followed whispers that weren't human. Zephyr wasn't the only one who'd heard my wish. Something else had, too. Something that didn't come for love. The air in Laramie turned heavy, like the world was holding its breath. I spent the day after Zephyr's disappearance tearing through town, checking every place we'd been: a diner where he'd tried, and failed, to eat a burger like a human, the field where he'd first appeared, even the dive bar where Maya swore she'd seen him flicker like a bad TV signal. Nothing. Just the echo of his voice calling me husband, and the ache in my chest that grew with every empty corner. By dusk, I was back at my apartment, staring at his note like it held the secrets of the universe. There's something I must do. What did that mean? Was he in trouble? Was I? The thought twisted my gut. I'd spent years building walls around my heart, and in a week, Zephyr had torn them down like they were paper. Now he was gone, and I was left wondering if I'd imagined him entirely. Then the knocking started. Not on my door, on the walls. A low, rhythmic thud, like something testing the edges of my reality. I grabbed a wrench from my toolbox, my pulse hammering, and followed the sound to the back of the shop. The air shimmered, and a figure stepped through. A woman, or something like one, with eyes like oil slicks and a smile that made my skin crawl. "You're the one who wished," she said, her voice a hiss that echoed inside my skull. "You called, and we answered." "We." I gripped the wrench tighter. "Where's Zephyr?" She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Zephyr's playing house. But he's not the only one who heard your little plea. You wished for love. Mortal. That's a dangerous thing. It draws attention." Her name, she said, was Nyx, and she wasn't here to grant wishes. She was a collector of desires, of souls, of anything that burned bright enough to catch her eye. My wish, it seemed, had been a beacon, and Zephyr's arrival had only amplified it. "He's bound to you," Nyx purred, circling me like a predator. "But bindings work both ways. Break it, or I'll take what's mine." I didn't know what she meant, but the threat was clear. She wanted Zephyr, me, or both. Before I could demand answers, she vanished, leaving only a chill in the air and a warning: find him before I do. I didn't sleep that night. I scoured the internet, old books from the library, anything that might explain what Zephyr was, what Nyx was, what I'd gotten myself into. Demons, it turned out, weren't just biblical boogeymen. They were entities of desire, drawn to human longing like moths to a flame. Zephyr had said he granted wishes, but Nyx's words suggested a cost to balance. Had I traded my freedom for love? The next day, Maya dragged me to the town's edge, where the meteor shower had first lit up the sky. "You're not telling me everything," she said, her braids swinging as she poked my chest. "I saw him. Elliot. He wasn't just weirdo, was wrong. And now you're acting like you're haunted." I spilled it all. "Zephyr. The wish. Nyx." Maya's eyes widened, but she didn't laugh. "Okay," she said finally. "If your demon boyfriend's real, we find him. But if this Nyx chick's after you, we're not waiting for her to make the first move." We searched until midnight, following a trail of strange sunset tree scorched with no fire, a patch of grass that glowed faintly under the moonlight. Then, in the middle of nowhere, I saw him, Zephyr, kneeling in the dirt, his hands pressed to the ground like he was holding back a flood. His eyes met mine, and for a moment, I forgot Nyx, forgot the fear. He looked broken. Elliot, he rasped, his voice strained. You shouldn't be here. Neither should you. I snapped, pulling him to his feet. His skin was cold. His glow dimmed. What's going on? Who's Nyx? He hesitated, then told me the truth. He was a demon of desire. Yes, but Nyx was his oppositia demon of consequence. Every wish had a price, and she enforced it. My wish had bound Zephyr to me, but it had also drawn Nyx's attention. If I didn't unmake the wish, she'd claim us both not for love, but for power. Then unmake it, I said, my voice shaking. Send her away. Zephyr's eyes darkened. If I do, I leave too. Forever. The words hit like a punch. I'd known him for days, but the thought of losing him felt like losing a piece of myself. Then we fight, I said. Together. He smiled. Faint but real. You're braver than you know. Husband. But Nyx wasn't the only problem. As we headed back to town, the shadows moved again faster. Closer. They weren't just watching anymore. They were hunting. The shadows had voices now, whispering my name like a curse. Zephyr and I ran through the Wyoming plains, the night alive with things that shouldn't exist, shapes that flickered at the edge of sight, claws glinting in the moonlight. My heart pounded, but Zephyr's hand in mine was steady, grounding me even as the world unraveled. We holed up in an abandoned barn, the air thick with dust and the scent of old hay. Zephyr's glow was fading, his breath shallow. She's draining me, he admitted, slumping against a beam. Nyx, every moment I'm bound to you. She pulls at my essence. If we don't stop her, she'll take us both. Then tell me how, I demanded, kneeling beside him. His face was drawn, but his eyes still burned with that fierce, impossible warmth. I wanted to scream, to shake him, to demand why he'd answered my stupid wish in the first place. But looking at him vulnerable, real, here I couldn't. He explained, Nyx thrived on unfulfilled desires, on the chaos of wishes gone wrong. My wish for love had been pure, but its intensity had drawn her like blood in the water. To stop her, we had to face her on her terms in the space between worlds, where wishes were born. But entering that realm meant risking everything, my life, his existence, our bond. I'm not letting you go alone, I said, my voice steady despite the fear clawing at me. You call me husband, right? That means we're in this together. Zephyr's laugh was weak but genuine. You're stubborn, Elliot Harper. It's why I love you. The word love hit me like a freight train. I didn't have time to process it. The barn doors rattled, and Nyx's voice slithered through the cracks. Time's up. Lovers, give me the wish, or I take it all. Zephyr stood, his glow flaring despite his weakness. Stay behind me, he whispered. But I wasn't some damsel. I grabbed a rusted pitchfork from the wall and stood beside him. If Nyx wanted to fight, she'd get one. The doors exploded inward, and Nyx appeared, her form shifting woman. Shadow. Beast. Her eyes locked on me, and I felt my wish burning in my chest. A living thing she wanted to rip out. You don't deserve him, she hissed. A mortal, clinging to a demon's heart. Pathetic. Zephyr lunged, his hands blazing with starlight. But Nyx was faster. She knocked him aside, her claws grazing his side. He crumpled, and I saw red. I swung the pitchfork, catching her off guard. It didn't hurt her, but it bought us time. I dragged Zephyr to the back of the barn, barricading us behind a stack of crates. We need to get to her realm. He gasped. There's a ritual, blood and intent. Your wish started T-Sit can end it. I didn't hesitate. I cut my palm with a pocket knife, letting the blood drip onto the dirt. Zephyr guided me, his voice steady despite the pain. Focus on your wish. Elliot. Not just Lovius. Hold it in your heart. I closed my eyes, picturing every moment his teasing smile, his warmth, the way he made me feel seen. The air shimmered, and the barn dissolved. We stood in a void, stars swirling around us. Nyx waiting like a queen on a throne of shadows. You think you can defy me? She snarled. Your love is a flicker. I am eternal. But Zephyr was on his feet now, his glow brighter than ever. You're wrong, he said. His love is stronger than you'll ever be. The fight was brutal. Nyx lashed out with tendrils of darkness, but Zephyr countered with bursts of light. I wasn't useless either. I dodged, distracted, even landed a hit when her focus slipped. But she was relentless, and Zephyr was weakening. I could feel our bond fraying, like a rope about to snap. Then I remembered his words. Bindings work both ways. If Nyx was draining him through me, maybe I could turn it around. I grabbed Zephyr's hand, pouring every ounce of my will into our connection, not just my wish, but my choice. I chose him, not as a wish, but as my truth. The void shook. Nyx screamed, her form flickering. No, she roared. You can't. But we could. Together. We pushed back, our bond a blaze that drowned her shadows. She shattered, dissolving into the void, leaving only silence. We collapsed, breathless, in each other's arms. The stars faded, and we were back in the barn, alive, whole. Dawn broke over Laramie, painting the plains gold. Zephyr and I sat on the barn's roof, bruised but breathing, watching the world wake up. His glow was back, softer now, like candlelight, and his hand rested in mine, warm and real. You didn't unmake the wish, he said quietly, his eyes searching mine. You could have. It would have been easier. I shrugged, my throat tight. Easier's not always better. I meant what I wished for. Zephyr, I want this. You. He smiled. And for the first time, it wasn't sharp or teasing, just open. Unguarded. Then I'm yours. Husband. For as long as you'll have me. But it wasn't that simple. Nyx was gone. But the weight of what we'd done lingered. I'd learned the truth about wishes. They weren't just words thrown at the stars. They were promises. Choices. Burdens. Zephyr wasn't bound to me anymore. Not by magic. He stayed because he wanted to. And that was scarier than any demon. It meant I had to be enough, not just for him, but for myself. We went back to my apartment, and life resumed. But different. Zephyr still washed dishes, still called me husband. But now it felt like a choice, not a spell. The town noticed, too. Mrs. Delaney stopped whispering about shadows and started baking us pies. Maya, ever the skeptic, gave Zephyr a grudging nod of approval after he fixed her jukebox with a snap of his fingers. But the real change was in me. I'd spent years hiding, afraid of being seen, of being hurt again. Zephyr didn't just love me, he showed me how to love myself. Scars and all. We'd fought a demon together. But the bigger fight was the one I'd been waging my whole life, to believe I deserved this happiness. One night, months later, we lay in the field where it all began. The stars above us quiet but bright. What happens now? I asked, my head on his chest, his heartbeat steady under my ear. Now. Zephyr's voice was soft, like a secret. We live. We love. We make new wishes, not for magic, but for us. I thought about Caleb, about the years I'd spent running from my own heart. I thought about Nyx, about the cost of wanting something fiercely. And I thought about Zephyr, who'd crossed the cosmos for a broken mechanic with a reckless wish. Okay, I said, turning to kiss him under the stars. Let's make new wishes. And we did. Not for demons or magic, but for mornings together. For laughter. For fights and apologies and quiet moments that felt like home. I'd wished for love on a shooting star. And I'd gotten Maury a partner. A purpose. A life I hadn't dared dream of. In Laramie, the whispers faded, replaced by stories of the mechanic and his strange, glowing boyfriend who fixed cars and hearts with equal care. We weren't perfect, but we were real. And that was enough.